Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine
your story.
What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission? Welcome all to accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a light on incredible individuals and organizations and the work that they do. I'm your host, Josh Basil. I'm a C4-5 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders, and a power wheelchair user. I'm the Community Relations Manager at accessiBe and a passionate disability rights advocate and trial attorney focused on breaking down barriers to access and inclusion for people with disabilities. Today on accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, we're joined by Celia Hensman, the co-founder at Access2Funding. Welcome, Celia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm excited to have you be our guest today, so let's jump right into it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So my name is Celia. I'm from the UK. I was born with a connective tissue disorder called Loeys-Dietz syndrome. It's very weird and wonderful. It's very rare. Not many people know about it. So if you've not heard of it, don't feel bad. What it has done is mean that my body doesn't produce collagen properly and I don't have enough elasticity. So it's made for a whole host of problems. The main one being complete intestinal failure. So I can't eat or drink anything anymore, which is a very different way of living to the average person, considering the entirety of society revolves around food and drink, it seems. When you can't eat, that's how it feels. But I'm also, that doesn't stop me. I'm a passionate disability rights campaigner. I'm a founder of several organizations. I'm an investor, and I focus on the disability community, accessibility, diversity, inclusion, and everything in between. I love it. And policy as well.
You know it all. I love it.
A little bit of everything, really a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. And that must be such a fun way of doing it so that you don't get bored in one area. You're like, I'm going to make an impact every which way I can.
I had a really weird week a couple of months ago where I think on the Friday I was doing London Fashion Week, and then on the Saturday I was up in Downing Street talking about disability policy and accessibility in relation to women. So it was a real juxtaposition, but I think it just showed how broad the industry can be and how exciting it can be as well.
That's awesome. And now tell us more about Access2Funding.
So Access2Funding is an amazing project that, want to raise awareness of. So for the first time ever, myself and Joseph Williams, who's the other co-founder, we're collecting data on disabled entrepreneurialism to paint a picture of the current state of play of what it is like to be a disabled entrepreneur. Statistically, disabled people are much more likely to set up their own companies because of the barriers that there are in employment and in the mainstream workplace and in the education system. And that's a whole nother conversation to be had. But what we're doing is collecting data around what it is like to be a disabled entrepreneur. So our initial paper came out at the end of last year. And one of the pieces of data that we found was that only 16% of disabled entrepreneurs feel like they are treated equally to non-disabled entrepreneurs when they're trying to gain investment, when they're looking to partner with other organizations. That is a huge level of discrimination that is happening. And one of the other things that we're trying to highlight is the massive portion of money that's being left on the table undiscovered because people aren't focusing and highlighting on disabled entrepreneurialism. When we worked it out to be about a £500 billion loss each year, that as a society we are losing and we are hemorrhaging because we're not giving disabled people a chance because of the misconceptions and the barriers that we're up against.
That is some big numbers there. And then, so let's say you're an entrepreneur, you have a disability. What do they do next? Do they go to your website? How do they apply? What's the process?
So if you find us on LinkedIn, what we're doing is we want to also create a cohort of disabled entrepreneurs. So it's not about us as an entity. It's not about us as an organization. It's about the people behind it, driving it. So we're creating this massive group of disabled entrepreneurs, and we've already got so many amazing people that are connecting with each other and also sharing resources and sharing their experiences of this is what it's like to be a disabled entrepreneur. These are excellent companies. These are barriers that I faced and these are how I overcame it. So if you want to find us and track us down on LinkedIn, join the group and get involved. And there's a survey as well that we're rolling out to keep collecting the data. We have a much larger policy paper coming out in July, which we're going to be taking to the government. And there's some very exciting things in the work stream around the data that we're collecting and who's going to be using it to hopefully drive forward some positive policies so that we put the spotlight on disabled entrepreneurialism and the potentiality that we have if people give us a chance and we break down those barriers that people view us with.
Is this going to be UK focused or is this global?
So at the moment we are UK focused. However, we are going global. It is something we want to do after our main policy paper has been released in July, that there's specifically in America as well is going to be our first touching point. We're already building up connections over there to take it across the sea and stimulate the good old partnership that our two countries have. But it's also about kind of cross opportunity as well. The whole point of access to funding is to improve opportunities and outcomes for disabled entrepreneurs. So investment is global and projects are global and companies are very rarely domestically focused only. So we want to make sure that we're kind of building that global ethos and making sure that people are involved from across the world, because the barriers that there are over here are transatlantic and completely across the world, that everybody is up against the same thing, unfortunately.
And when did you found this?
So it started as a separate policy project that I was working on with the Disability Policy Centre, which is I was also a co-founder of, which is the first think tank policy unit specifically working on disability and accessibility. And it was a project we started alongside Clue, who are an amazing organisation. So if you don't know them, get to know them. And it started as a piece of data research. It started as we want to focus on disabled entrepreneurialism and see what we can do in this area, because it's a real and very significant problem that's happening in this country and across the world. And as it started to snowball very, 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 very quickly, we realized actually this is an entity in itself. This isn't just about policy as well. This is about the people behind it, and how can we use this policy project and this research opportunity to actually improve what's happening for disabled entrepreneurs. Let's get people together. Let's connect people. Let's make sure we're building up a cohort of people that support each other. One of the statistics that we found is when you Google female founder, when you Google Black female founder, some fantastic results come up. And we see this amazing cohort of women and people from across intersectioning identities all over Google and having their space. And that's incredible. When you Google disabled founder, there's only 0.2% of the share of voice in comparison to other underrepresented community voices. Now, that's to highlight there is still significant problems in those areas. Absolutely, we're not acknowledging the fact that those areas are problem solved, go off and do your thing, but it's to say disability should be equally part of the diversity conversation as other intersectioning identities. It's not to take power away from those voices. It's not to take traction and energy and effort away from those voices, but it's to say we want to be part of that voice too. And currently we only share 0.2% of the voice when it comes to talking about entrepreneurialism. And considering the vast majority of disabled people in employment are entrepreneurs in their own right, that's a shocking disparity that's happening, and we want to be part equally of that conversation.
It's a very important conversation to have, and I'm so happy to hear that you're doing something to help change that. So awesome work. I love asking this question, but what is the first thing that comes to mind for you when you hear the word access?
I think diversity is the first word that comes to mind. Is that I think the conversation around access can go down a dangerous path of being very cookie cutter. So the amount of buildings I've spoken to, or the amount of companies that I've spoken to, they said, well, we've got a lift and a wheelchair ramp. And my response is, but that's not access. That's not accessibility. It is to a degree, and yay, congratulations, well done. But that is the bare minimum. When we talk about access, we're talking about a right, not a privilege. It's a basic human right that people should be able to access what they need to access. So that always what comes to mind is making sure there is diversity in accessibility and making sure that everybody is included in the conversation about what they may need.
Great answer. And what's one thing about people with disabilities that you wish more people around the world knew about?
I think the thing that I wish people knew more is that I'm not a superhero. I'm not subhuman. I'm not the most amazing entity that's doing all these things. I think we can very quickly slip into this brand of superheroes and fantastic and amazing and look at what they're doing. We see it around the Paralympic Games a lot of disabled people can very often fit into two sections of society, or perceived to be, that they're either Paralympians and off, running Forbes 30 under 30 campaigns and entities, or they're on benefits, or they're not doing anything, and they're and I quote unquote sponging off society. They're draining the NHS, they're draining the welfare state. That's not how it is at all. I wish people understood that we have normality, and I use that in inverted commas, to our lives. We enjoy leisure, we enjoy sport, we enjoy going to the theatre, going to the cinema, and we should be able to do those things just like everybody else is. Not all of us are Paralympians. It doesn't work like that. And we should, rather than looking at disabled people as a drain of, oh gosh, what do they need now? It's that that's something that makes somebody's life more acceptable, in the sense of more comfortable, and that's a right, not a privilege, that they should have. And we need to, as a world, better understand that disability is on a spectrum, and that we want to be able to participate, and so often society is the thing that is stopping us, not us being who we are in ourselves. If we had access to the things that we were able to access, we would be able to live the lives that we want to lead. And society is the thing that's stopping us. So I think that's what I'd want people to know, is that be very careful when you judge somebody's situation, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
A welcoming, barrier-free environment can make all the difference to let somebody not only survive but thrive.
I love that. I say that all the time. I want to thrive, not just survive as a human being. I want to be able to live a life I want to live. And, I'm not sitting here naively saying, oh, I'm going to run the London Marathon and I can do anything I want to do. I can do anything I want to do, but I do it in my way that works for me. And that's okay. It's okay to have a goal, but have to have a different way of getting there. And society should embrace that and not be so cookie cutter in the way that we approach people and people's journeys in life.
And you mentioned the word superhero. Like, people with disabilities are not, quote unquote superheroes. We have some amazing abilities, and very unique abilities to each and every one of us. And oftentimes those unique abilities, in my own opinion, give us perspectives that most people don't have. We get to see, experience, and be a part of this world in a different way, which creates real almost value, in the sense of, like, we're bringing something to the table that most people cannot.
Yes.
And I think that is just, especially in the business world, just one of the best reasons to hire somebody with a disability. But, like, I would love to know more from you from a business standpoint. What are some of the biggest gaps that you've seen in the business world around kind of prioritizing kind of access and inclusion?
100%. And just touching on that as well, disabled people, we over-index on empathy, determination, resilience. All of these characteristics are what make for great entrepreneurs and great business owners and representatives and politicians and anything. These are the characteristics we want in the people leading our society forward. There are massive gaps. The biggest one is the funding gap that we speak about a lot, with obviously access to funding, clues in the name, is the fact that there is a massive disparity, that there's almost this lack of trust in disabled people, that somehow health equals wealth, that if you've got doctor's appointments, or you're a wheelchair user, that's an automatic disregard for you. You're probably going to be unreliable. You're probably not going to be able to contribute like we want to. You're probably not as intelligent. School was probably more difficult for you, or whatever it may be, as well around neurodiversity. And these misconceptions are so incorrect and so damaging, that I've met the most amazing disabled entrepreneurs that, because we're from underrepresented communities, because we have had quote unquote a different experience in life, we've identified problems in society that maybe the average person, I use that again in quotations, hasn't identified. So we are the best problem solvers because we've lived through those problems. We know what's needed to take those systems down, but people aren't listening. We are disregarded automatically because of these misconceptions that somehow health equals wealth, and you can't possibly be a successful business owner if you're disabled because you've got everything else to deal with. It's just so untrue. And part of the work of Access to Funding is to highlight the amazing work that people out there are doing as business owners, as founders, as creatives and idea thinkers, and putting a spotlight on them and saying, we are coming up with the solutions to the world's toughest problems because we've lived through them, and we've lived through them in a very different lens, meaning we are very creative, outward thinking people.
Celia, thank you so much for being our guest today our
Thanks.
accessiBe's Spotlight sessions. You have incredible insights, and you're bringing so much to the table. Thank you for doing a little of everything, because you're really good at it.
You. You can be a model, but you can also do policy. It works both ways. And I think I say that to anybody, that if you know you want to do something, don't let how society views you stop you, because society is the one in the wrong, not how you're thinking about yourself. So
that's so true. And I've mentored thousands of families within the paralysis community, and I always tell them that you need to become your own best advocate, because nobody's going to fight harder for you than you're going to fight for yourself. And really at the end of the day, the only person that's going to stop me is me.
Exactly.
So,
internalized ableism is real and rife. And, I've dealt with it a lot myself, and how I viewed myself. And I reached a point where I realized that how I viewed myself was because that was how society was viewing me. It wasn't how I actually thought about myself. I thought I am quite creative, or whatever it may be. I just internalized what society was saying to me. And as soon as I dismantled that and realized that there is power in being disabled and the unique attributes it gives you, leave it at that.
thank you, Celia. And to all of our guests, thank you for staying to the end to accessiBe's Spotlight sessions. Remember to hit that subscribe button and follow us at accessiBe_community. And everyone, again, as always, thank you for being on this journey with us. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.